The central theme for the project, coming from the sort of observation of what we saw in convention centres around the world, was we were keen to make the Melbourne Convention Centre feel like it belonged to Melbourne, to kind of the collective consciousness of Melburnians. So that first of all, Victorians, Melburnians would be proud of it and consider it part of their city, but also international visitors who were coming here for a 3 or 4 day conference turnaround felt like that they, even if they never left the building, that they had at least understood what the sense of Melbourne was. For convention centres to operate, they do require a sort of global commonality. So for Melbourne to pitch for a conference, there are certain criteria that you have to get conferences to come. They require certain facilities, certain size spaces. So convention centres do have a certain global quality. That becomes a kind of challenge for the project, that in order to satisfy the common requirement for it to participate in the global economy of conventions, but at the same time you want to create an experience for people when they come that feels like it belongs to Melbourne. We saw those two things as being the kind of the challenge of the project. The consortium decided to bid for a 6-star Green Star rating, which made it the first 6-star Green Star convention centre in the world. The benefit of making that decision early was that it meant that you weren't trying to catch up that decision as you went through the design. It meant that every decision that you made from the beginning, you thought about its implications in the Green Star. So when people often ask, oh, what's the big feature that gives it its rating? The answer is there isn't a big feature. It's actually all those millions of decisions that were made along the way that built up to give it its rating. And that's clearly a kind of a better model. It's a better way to get a green building than to sort of build a traditional building and then just stick something onto it, is to think of it all the way through. The main foyer can handle up to about 10,000 guests, and it was put into its full mode when we had the Parliament of Religions conference here about 3 months ago, where we had the Dalai Lama speaking in the main hall, but we had different ethnic and religious groups from around the world coming for the convention, which meant the building was in full global operational model. You know, the Muslim prayer room was in operation, the kitchen, the food requirements were all different for each of the various visitors from parts of the world. So the building did have to operate for its sort of 10,000 people, but not 10,000 generic people. It was 10,000 remarkably different people. So that was a real test for the building, and yeah, it was great to see the Dalai Lama speaking in the main hall. The main hall is the centrepiece, the main auditorium, the plenary hall. It is the first hall in the world that can seat 5,600 people in its open mode, single mode, but the hall can also be divided into 3 separate auditoriums with operable walls which are fully acoustically rated, so that the hall can operate either as a single hall of 5,600 seats or 3 individual halls of 1,500, 2,500 and then 1,500. And as I say, the acoustics are such that you can have a rock concert in one, while at the same time the Dalai Lama could be speaking in the second, and there could be a graduation ceremony for the university in the third. Everything in the project is custom designed and custom built. An example of that is there's a rose pattern in the main ballroom, which was taken from the roses at Flemington Racecourse. Again, an event that only Melbourne has at Flemington, with the Melbourne Cup and other famous horse races, and that became embedded in the carpet pattern. So there's a whole lot through the project of various colours and patterns, but the origin of them all comes from things that belong to Indigenous culture, colonial culture and contemporary culture in Melbourne. And if people don't understand that, or don't recognise it when they see it, that's not an issue for us. It's more just there is a lineage of where these things come from. Most people who visit it for the first time, their first reaction is this is the most the colour is the most striking convention centre they've certainly ever been in, and they're kind of a bit taken aback that a client would have accepted these colours, but the client could also see that it was important that their convention centre was different.